progress.
Química, energías limpias, laboratorios de celda de combustibles de la Universidad de
Energies
Génova.
from,
Y bueno, y tenemos al sector público.
and we have the public sector of a country that has a truly diplomacy of the state that Mario is going to tell us in order to implement and develop what it is, nitrogen. And also we have Griselda Lambertini that are supporting America Latina for this kind of initiatives. So we have everything we need in order to have some assessment. For the ones that have worked in topics of hydrogen, we see that, let's say from 2020, there is this moment where Europe publishes the hydrogen policy and invites other countries to work and to import the same quantity of a hydrogen that is going to be transformed. And even the European Union, it is updating these requirements. And this is, they say I'm going to produce 10 million of tons per year to 2030, 2035, but I'm going to import that also the same amount to associated countries. So Europe looks at the world and see where the capacities are high in terms of solar or wind energy. And that is what makes the competitive price of hydrogen. And also it's looking at countries like India and also Latin America. This is why we are talking about hydrogen. And this is, well, this was published and reinforced in 2022. This is the point when they have to do the repower of the EU. And after 5 years, we have to make that analysis of how this is working, advancing since then. So in this first round, I would like the panelists to share with us. And then as well, what is going to happen in the next 10 years. And I'm going to start with the research. And I would like to ask Dario, still in 5 years, we still have 2% of hydrogen produced with electrolytes. And there is this advance in this. Is there any new advance in this 5 years, or what happens in this kind of market? Can you tell us? He's going to speak in English, so.
I will speak in English. Thank you for your kind presentation, Griselda. It's a pleasure to be here today. And yes, as I said, Griselda, at the moment, the production of hydrogen using electrolyzer is well below 2%. But in the last 5 years, we had seen some improvements because 5 years ago, the total installed power of electrolyzer was around some megawatts. And now the power installed is around 1.5 gigawatts. So this is a first signal of the improvements of the electrolyzer technology. But there is also an improvement not only related to the power installed, but also from a technical point of view. For instance, if we see the different type of electrolyzer, such as alkaline electrolyzer, in these last 5 years, we have seen improvements related to the stack design in order to have a more compact stack. Of course, for the alkaline electrolyzer, there are some critical. Another type electrolyzer in this last 5 high current density for square is very results, especially for renewable energies. The critical point about that type of electrolyzer is the material for the electrodes, because the electrodes are composed by noble material, such as platinum, iridium, so it's very expensive. There are also two emerging types of electrolyzer. The first one is the anion exchange membrane electrolyzer. It's a type of electrolyzer that tries to combine the advantage of alkaline electrolyzer and the PEM electrolyzer, because this type of electrolyzer doesn't use noble material for electrodes and try to work with high current densities. Of course, this is a very emerging technology, and the performance at the moment are lower than PEM electrolyzer. The other emerging electrolyzer is the solid oxide electrolyzer cell. This type of electrolyzer works at high temperature. It works around 6, 7, 800 Celsius degree. And for this reason, it has very high performance. Especially, it's possible to recycle, to use the waste heat from industrial plants. What is the critical point about that technology? Is that this type of electrolyzer work very well with stable energy. So if we want to use this type of electrolyzer with renewable energies, there are some problems related to the fluctuation of the renewable energy. So there are also some common critical points, some challenge points for each type of electrolyzer. The first one is the scale up. At the moment, we have small or medium stack for electrolyzer, but in the future, we need large stack for electrolyzer. It's important to improve the material in order to obtain a stability of the electrolyzer for a long period. Another challenging point is a water footprint. More or less, an electrolyzer, the consumption of electrolyzer is around 10, 15 liters of water for 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So this could be challenging, especially for countries where there is a scarcity of water. For instance, North Africa for us in Europe is a very problem. And another challenge step is the integration of the renewable energy with the electrolyzer. So it's important to define, to build a model, strong model, to have to forecast the peak of demands of energy and the fluctuation of the renewable energy. So in conclusion, in these last 5 years, we have seen improvements of the technology, and it's important to study about this technology in order to overcome the challenging to the problem that I said related to the scale up, water footprint, and integration with renewable energy.
Thank you, Darío. Bueno, tuvimos una clase de electrolizadores y se van con lo último. Hubo ganancias en eficiencia.
There was a class here with electrolyzer. We had some advantages and the challenges of each of the technologies. So in the next round, I'm going to ask us some projection for the future. Thank you very much.
No, it's okay.
Ahora te toca a vos con
Mario, it's your part because you are talking about the structure and the policies. Chile is an example for the neighboring countries, not only because of the strategy and the action plan that also tries to take that strategy to the field, and that is what do you call the state policy that we are envy. And we would like to hear about that. How is it to build this state policy for the hydrogen, and what are the advantages, or what do you expect to have from it? Thank you for the invitation. The concept of state policy, since our perspective, from our perspective, is not something new. From the hydrogen industry and the projections of the market, we can find several examples in the Chilean history, and there is one that is quite analogous, the experience of thinking about the future of the hydrogen. When we meet in this kind of a space, we are generally talking about time, projection, expectations. And I would like to tell a story that is very similar to what we are living today in the industry of hydrogen with the massification of the system. In 1972, and this is a story, maybe you know it, we had a plane crashing in the Andes with Uruguayan sports team, and they find this country person, and the problem is that they have this river separating the country person, and the country person actually it was like a countryman. They sent in a stone, a pencil, and a piece of paper. And then in this way, they communicated to each other. And in that way, he was able to read. In the 70s, he was a countryman of 40 years old, and it was not common in Latin America. What I want to say with this story is that this is related to a public policy, because in the 20s it was mandatory for all the kids in Chile to go to school. This correlation is forceful, it's not correlative. But 50 years later, after this law, we have two Nobel Prizes in literature. So thinking in this way, large scale, it's similar to what we are doing with hydrogen. What we are doing today is determining the future, and this is going to transcend the future and the variables of different administrations. And likely, or maybe not likely, is not fortune, it's not luck, it's something that it's work on this kind of society. We can build up to that goal. And this is a consequence of that. The current Minister of Energy has a fluent dialogue with the prior minister. So we have no doubt that this is going to happen also for the future ministers. And that is an stability that is going to be carried on. And we have and a specific institution with the specific roles, and that is going to be kept over time. And in spaces like this today, we want to make visible that beyond the projections that they are being adjusted because of the update of the demand and the update of the market, and this can change. But first of all, we need to have the good grounds to start. Of course, in this area that is going to go to international markets, the public policy is really key. And now, from that, that is so necessary. Now, I would like to go to the economics part, and I have the private sector. And actually, we have gone from thinking in these 5 years in these giga projects and now the mega projects that are more easy to fund, more realistic. But for this, we need local demand. And if we are going to need great exports, for example, but well, are you seeing that too? And what is the environment of the public policy and the Chilean regulations? Is there some kind of incentive being proposed to work with that? Thank you for the question. Good afternoon. I would like to start by saying the same as my prior colleagues. Sometimes we forget that we are creating from scratch a new industry, all world, and I mean the planet, the countries that are aligned in this philosophy of decarbonization with the purpose of mitigating the climate change. And this is the best alternative to fo- fossil fuels. And this is a big industry, and we are from scratch creating an alternative that wants to complement also be a complement of the electrification. And it seems easy. We are going to implement this project from scratch, and that implies that we need to create the demand, the human capital, to advance in the technological development, to create the transportation methods that are necessary to transport this, and also hydrogen and the similar uh, materials. At the same time, we have to create financial models that work out. And we are doing this work that has a negative impact in the traditional oil and gas industry. And I come from the oil and gas industry, and I think in 5 or 6 years we are going to move that away with the capex that we have already. installed, and this is not going to work overnight. That pressure is felt in the private and the public sector that needs profitable models of market. And also we have to respond to foreign investment, and we have to select the best country in order to put our investment. And I think that this is important to remember how we are doing it and why we are doing it, and the public policy, what is it about, to place the help mechanisms. We have two ways of working. Hydrogen, and I have said it in many forums, it doesn't compete with the electrification. I mean, they have to be complementary, and first we have to electrify everything that is possible, and then we complement in these areas that are different to cover private, public, cement, industrial areas. And we have two variables, I said. One, it is the sectors and the demand that it's already existing. That, and there we have the challenge of reducing the cost gap between the gray hydrogen and the conventional source of fuel. And on the other side, we have another model of market that it is being born, and we have to implement changes in the traditional transport system, maritime, steel, mining industries. Everything is going to be transformed, and everything that is related to the replacement of the current demand, and the incentives are really important for this. And Chile has done a big effort considering all the priorities that we have as a country, and security in public policies and social expenses and investment. We need to create this mechanism and alliances with the countries and with other organisms like the European Union and other institutions, so we can get funds to help to implement these projects in this country. And the private sector, for example, they are making an effort, considering that this is a project that requires an important investment from the development stage, where we have very big costs to develop these. And of course, I can tell you that the development costs in the whole Latin American region are quite similar. Um, and then we have these mechanisms that are implementing through Corfo that has helped a lot, and they have been able to administer funds and loans with the more flexible conditions that are allowed to mitigate the rhythm of the project. So this is a mechanism that is still ongoing. We have to continue with the implementation, the discussion with the Bank of the State. Actually, it is in conversations, but this vision where we started thinking that we have first to extract and produce the energy and then export it, right? But there are challenges to solve in that sense, and the mega projects are really important to take into consideration to accelerate the knowledge, how to start new projects, and also to train the human capital in order to make these big projects to come alive. And then the taxes, incentives that the states it's proposing turns out to be really important. This is a mechanism that it is can be improved, of course, but that means that the government in this case has $1,800 million in a period of 5 years. I don't remember the number, but they do this tendering process, and you apply with a maximum of $5,000 per kilo of hydrogen, and the benefits that can be obtained by the producer of the hydrogen can be passed down to the consumer and the user. And this is kind of a tax credit that it can be actually discounted from the taxes of the producer. And this is a mechanism that is going to close this gap between the price of production and the price that the user can buy. But the important thing is that this is a transitory process, but it's going to help us to start moving the demand. And in Chile, we have buyers that are very interested. For example, the ammonia that it is used for the explosive, it is something that we export completely in this country. And this mechanism of tax incentives will allow to have access to these projects where we can avoid some imports and, of course, to continue decarbonizing the process of the mining industry. It's a very good mechanism, and we like to know more about that. According to this, I mean, we are going to do very well with Chile. And Connie, maybe you know her now. She has a lot of webinars, and now she's here face to face. We meet in person today. And I would like to ask you, Connie, how you, from the international cooperation in the last 5 years, and I hope you continue into the future, how do you contribute to this public-private effort to decrease this gap in different areas, commercial, financial? So tell us a little bit, how does that work? Thank you. International cooperation, and I am representing that entity, but it plays a decisive role. And Rebecca has said it. We are a very new industry, and in some countries, it's going to replace gray hydrogen in some industries, but it's part of what is being done in Chile to create new industries and new products, and that means chains of connections that we are not used to. So from the international cooperation, what else we can do? So what we can do is to see what is happening in other countries that are a little bit more in the future, and not only Europe and outside, but look, we can start looking at our neighbors. We are a very similar uh, we have a lot of similarities, maybe different levels of pilots and advancement with that, but we are very similar. So we have to start seeing looking at opportunities of what we are doing, and so we can share those common knowledge, and we can bring compared experiences in certification topics, and the countries can see what is more easy or suitable for the certifications according to the countries I'm going to export to, or maybe I have to develop my own certification or to get together with my region in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is a question that you have to ask yourself, and we invest a lot of money with this. So it's a good question. We can open schemes of permits and to know by basically what the other countries are doing. We can know pilots, and I'm not talking about this pilot that is so far away. No, no, countries, neighboring countries have good pilots, training. We can help to reduce the learning curve, and this is something very common. And I think that you were in the conversation yesterday that we have in the maritime corridors, and these are things that we try to help with and funding. Of course, and something that it is coming to us. These are very good instruments that we can help to work together. But beyond that, now I have my hat on of my organizations. What we are doing it is to articulate. We have a network of 40 institutions in the region that are Ministry of Energy of Chile, for example, that also these associations are Hydrogen Chile in several other countries. We are more than 40. More than 13 countries are represented in the public sector, in the private sector, from the academia, from different unions. What we are trying to do is just to articulate this. Let's sit together. Let's see the common challenges. What have you learned? And maybe here we can collaborate. There is a great value on that. What I didn't say is that H2 comes from the Euroclimate, and it's funded by Germany and Euroclimate entities. And we work with the GIZ and also the World Bank. We are working together, and those institutions are collaborating because we believe, strongly believe, that in the collaboration we can move forward faster. Collaboration, it's the most important part of articulation, and we want to cooperate for everyone to work properly, and that all the mechanisms that we are proposing and that the industry is also working on, it is we have to share all of these options. And actually, and it is a partner of Olade as well. In terms of hydrogen, we know what is your job, what you are doing, and I would like to advance from the international perspective that promotes us and help us. I want to go back to this new topic. For example, in Argentina, it is new to think like this. And we were thinking about projects in terms of exports, but let's see what we have discussed here, industries that are existing and others. So maybe you, in the short and medium term, what do you think is this industry going to? Thank you for this question. And all the speakers, I mean, they said a lot and they complement perfect to what it's being said. And the CEPAL is the Economic Commission of Latin America and the Caribbean, and we work to support the countries in the region in the development of public policies, not only energy, but everything that it can connect to it. So we are trying to study the topic of the productive development related to hydrogen in the countries in the region, and precisely because of this, the global excitement and the opportunities that were foreseen for hydrogen and the uncertainties that we all know, the cost, the transportation, the regulation, and incentives, etc. So, we have tried to analyze this a little bit more deeper. What are the opportunities in the long term that the region may have in relation to the hydrogen of low emission? Knowing the diversity of our countries, the renewable power potential, and the economical structure of the countries, as many of you know, this region produces 4 million of tons a year of hydrogen, 4% of the world. This is a great hydrogen that it is used inside the radical and refineries. But that tell us that the countries in the region already have this industrial baseline, some countries, because we are heterogeneous, and that this is a solid infrastructure that may provide an opportunity in the short term for the development of hydrogen, and that somehow can represent an opportunity for, it's like the first step for further development. Everything that can be helped in the internal demand can be working in the future perspective that is more optimistic for the region's development. Some of the examples in the region that we see with a great potential to substitute the gray hydrogen, we have the case of Mexico, the refining industries, and in Chile and in Peru also there is fertilizers, and the whole region imports fertilizers, and there are some countries that have this option that they are really exposed in the agro food industry. So Brazil and Argentina are delicate in that area. So it is a good way to opportunity to prioritize the domestic demand with this baseline, and then we can adapt the development of the other markets. So this business model can advance positively, and then besides being a new industry, it can help the region to reduce some risks, to increase the energy security and other benefits. So for now, this is the vision in the short term. And when we talk about the capabilities, I would like to ask a similar question from the academy and the university, Darío, not only locally speaking, but international. What are the sectors that in the next years are going to take us to the development of this kind of energy?
Thank you for the question. So, as I said before, the moment the quantity of hydrogen is well below 2% produced by electrolysis. But according to the announced project, the total installed power of electrolyzer will be around 500 gigawatts in 2030. I think that this value is not credible, is real, because probably part of this project will be not authorized, part of this project will be not completed. So I think that a credible value is a power installed around 100, 200 gigawatts. So, of course, there are some policies that can help these improvements of the electrolyzer. For instance, in Europe, with the Renewable Energy Directive, Europe set two different goals. The first one is that for 2030, the 42% of hydrogen used in the industrial way must come from green energy, so from electrolyzer. Another important goal that Europe set for 2030 is that they want 40 gigawatts of electrolyzer installed in the European area. Of course, these two goals are very challenging, but can help the development of the hydrogen and electrolyzer technology. Of course, there are also some sectors that can help the development of hydrogen, green hydrogen and electrolyzer. The first one, of course, is chemical sector, because at the moment, the 40% of hydrogen is used to produce ammonia and methanol. And here, it's very easy to change, to substitute gray hydrogen with green hydrogen, because we don't need to modify anything in the process, in production process. The same things for the oil refinery. Also, in this case, it's easy to change from gray hydrogen to green hydrogen without modification. Another important sector is the steel sector. At the moment, steel is produced using coal. So coal reduces iron to generate steel. And the idea for the future is to use hydrogen. So the idea is to use hydrogen to reduce directly iron to generate steel. Here, of course, is more challenging, because we needed to modify the plant in order to optimize the use of hydrogen. Another sector, of course, is the transportation sector. Of course, for cars, battery is winning, but for EV trucks, aviation, or maritime field, hydrogen or the use of e-fuels produced using green hydrogen, it's very interesting. In Europe, but I think also in the South America, there are several companies that works on these, the use of hydrogen or e-fuels in aviation and maritime field. So, in conclusion, the next 5 years will be decisive for the development of hydrogen and electrolyzer. And of course, policies and sector will help the development of hydrogen. But I think that it's very important that also the research help us to identify what is the best technology in order to produce a cheap and sustainable hydrogen. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Darío. Y todos estos sectores que nos nombra Darío.
And all of these sectors that are mentioned by Darío, that we are not directly related, but they are the same, that we are going to have the border incentive and the world also it's going to have it's going to work in the same direction. I was really no talking about the incentives. We have 2 minutes each for the second round, no more than that. So Mario, very briefly, we talked about what Rebecca said, the tax incentive, and I would like to know what it is the impact of the public policy. What do we expect to get and what is missing for this to be enforced? Regarding the incentive on the law project and the task incentive of the internal demand of green hydrogen and the varieties and soft products, this law project, it is framed within this. It within the starting process, and this is being stated in the draft of this project. It's been dialogued or con different evidences and proofs, and with the academia, and based on that, the studies we have had later in the later years, they are fundamental. And this is a project that it is being treated with urgency in the Congress. And in 2026, we want it to be the first year when we have the first time that we sell this energy. And the project was detailed by Rebecca. It's an incentive of the consumers of hydrogen that deep down what it wants it is to generate decarbonization in the local industry. And we are betting that the green hydrogen that is produced in Chile can replace fuel that currently is being imported. And the goal it is to actually trigger the industries for them to make a decision because they are doubting what to do. And the industry, as it was said, in mining and transport and maritime, they can start exploring the internal demand of green hydrogen. And just to finish, together with the challenges of cost price that are covered by this draft of law, we're updating the national strategy of green hydrogen. And as everything in life, you have a whole plan and then reality changes. So some of the things that are in this plan are a little bit displaced, maybe, or maybe it was too ambitious. But maybe we found a different solution to the original plan. And we want to think about this internal articulation system. We are working with the Committee of Green Hydrogen, with Bachelet, with other ministers, and we are going to have news about that. What are going to be our updates of those projections? And finally, just one more thing. I would like to speak more about this, but I don't have time to talk about the social phase of this. In the case of Magallanes region, this is going to have an impact that is not only economic but also social, and that is something that we have to continually assess how this is going to be integrated in the citizens' life. I want to hear from Rebecca too in terms of business opportunities. When they have incentives, maybe you are aware that that is going to reactivate the economy. How is this going to be taken by the population? Part of the analysis of the private industry has this component, and I think that the social impact and the involvement with the territory, it's part of the green energy, but also in the interest of making it more sustainable and integrated with the territory. And just with a quick numbers, what does it mean for the country? decentralization. We are talking about two big hubs of production that are in Magallanes and Antofagasta, but also we have this other central area that we hope it is the one that is going to shift the center from the central area. And so we have more than $40,000 million dollars of investment as a country, and these actually created 39,000 employment positions directly and indirectly. And we have to include other projects that were related to feasibility and pre-feasibility. And finally, with the 84 projects that we have at the country level, only a fraction of these projects are going to raise the level of employment to 250,000 positions. And the development of human capital, positions, infrastructure is going to be good for the regions because they have the requirement of reactivation of the economy. And see, really talking about the economical results of the project, but how we insert properly in the territory and also to mm, show what are the benefits for the citizens in the long term for this industry. And the last number, I think that Minister Marcel, former minister, said that as this industry develops, we can increase the PIB in 10 years significantly. So this is something to take into consideration as well. And also mentioning prior ministers, this is very good because it's a state policy. 2 minutes for Connie, two for Marina, and I would like to hear about the development of the local chains because some incentives sometimes take us to make mistakes. In Europe, it has happened with the biofuels. Can you say something about that so we don't repeat the mistake? And those mistakes are not only in this section of the industry, but not long ago, this happened. And a recent example is that even the renewable energies with neighboring areas that have no access to energy. Those are the kind of errors that we want to avoid. This is not acceptable under any view. And this is a transversal thing because everyone say this. It's an industry that is trying to do things properly. And for that, it has to be fair and inclusive. And I'm going to make it short, but to generate value chains, we have a lot of potential industries that can help us work on this. And
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Donde nos estamos instalando. Eso significa también reforzar los sistemas eléctricos, asegurar el uso del agua. No
Recording in progress.
De hidrógeno que está desalinizando agua y el pueblo de al lado no tiene acceso al agua. Entonces, todo ese tipo de cosas
of water, all of those kind of things. I would say that we are proud to say there are some things that the industry has very clear, but I would like to repeat this. Everyone that is here today, we know what it is, the starting point. We don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And we are going to close with Marina. We know that the electrolyzers are ongoing with their advantages and disadvantages, and probably we are going to improve in efficiency. The policies, the incentives are ongoing. But Marina, I would like if you can summarize what are the aspects of governance and institutions to have into account in the next 5 years. I'm going to contribute with this heading, and I would say that we are going to launch this study where we have done the analysis for several countries of the region about governance, institutionality, and infrastructure, besides the potential of human resources, with 450 comparable indicators to be able to characterize these countries and to get to the conclusion that there is not just one recipe for all. We have different 4 or 5 groups with different potential of development of hydrogen, acknowledging that it's not the same to import fossil fuels and they do not have an industry to substitute the gray to the green hydrogen or others that have a greater different potential and the roadmap it's developed in a different way. They have pilot programs. So I invite you to review that study and report. That is going to be a great source of data to work with their policies. An applause for the panel. It's been amazing. Thank you.